NFL players are some of the toughest athletes on the planet.
Oh my God!
Man, it is wild. But for a few of these dudes, the real violence didn't happen during the game. It went down in the real world, and it was straight up lethal. We're talking about former star Aaron Hernandez getting slapped with a guilty verdict for first-degree murder. The judge gave him life behind bars. Then you have Jovan Belcher, the linebacker who took his own girlfriend's life. Authorities confirmed Belcher shot and killed her before turning the gun on himself. Even Ray Lewis, a total legend of the sport, saw his reputation dragged through a deadly stabbing investigation. Lewis and two buddies, Joseph Sweeting and Reginald Oakley, actually faced murder charges. These are the players who let the darkness take over once the pads came off. Let's look at Aaron Hernandez. He grew up in Bristol, Connecticut, but that house was a war zone. His dad was a nightmare, totally abusive. The parents were at each other's throats constantly. Hernandez later admitted he suffered abuse as a kid, but man, he was a natural athlete. He crushed it at the University of Florida, snagged a national title, and became an All-American. By 2010, the New England Patriots picked him up. He instantly became one of the best tight ends in the game, making history alongside Rob Gronkowski. The guy had skills, fame, and a legendary career ahead of him, but behind the scenes, he was completely spiraling. Everything crashed in 2013 when cops arrested him for killing Odin Lloyd, a semi-pro baller who was practically family. The Patriots dropped him like a bad habit immediately. Fast forward to 2015, and he's convicted of first-degree murder with a life sentence, no parole. The court clerk read it out. Indictment 2013-93 charging Aaron Hernandez with murder. While locked up, he stood trial for a separate double homicide from 2012 but beat that case. Life inside, though, it was chaotic. Hernandez was all over the place, super religious 1 minute, then getting high and fighting the guards the next. On April 19, 2017, just 5 days after beating that double murder rap, he ended his own life in his cell. He left behind weird notes, Bible verses, and creepy drawings that showed just how tortured his mind had become. The NFL scrubbed his face from video games and pulled his jerseys, while the victims' families were left dealing with heartbreak and rage. To make it even sadder, doctors found severe CTE in his brain, making everyone wonder if the head trauma drove him to violence. Now, the next guy has a story that belongs in a movie. Eric Naposki. He wasn't exactly a household name. He was a journeyman linebacker in the late 80s and early 90s, bouncing between the Patriots, Colts, and Jets without ever really sticking. He finally found some glory overseas, playing for the Barcelona Dragons. He even won a World Bowl in the World League of American Football. But the gridiron was just a prelude to something way darker. Back in December of 1994, a millionaire investor named Bill McLaughlin was gunned down in his Newport Beach mansion. The case went ice cold for 15 years, but when the truth finally came out, total shocker. Naposki was hooking up with McLaughlin's girlfriend, Nanette Johnston. The two of them cooked up a plan to kill Bill so she could cash out his life insurance. It was a classic noir plot, but having a former NFL linebacker as the hitman put it all over the headlines. Naposki and Johnston got away with it for over a decade. Authorities finally slapped handcuffs on them in 2009, and by 2011, Naposki was convicted of first-degree murder. He even said, "I admit I might have made some bad decisions." The jury decided he was the trigger man and did it strictly for the cash. Johnston went down too. By 2012, both of them were serving life sentences without any chance of parole. The whole thing was a roller coaster. Naposki's team swore he was innocent, blaming the 15-year delay, lost evidence, and circumstantial proof. There was no gun, no DNA, no fingerprints, and zero eyewitnesses, but the judge wasn't buying the appeal. Today, Naposki is rotting in a California prison, while his story gets replayed on shows like Time's American Greed, ***, 48 Hours***, and Time's Deadly Sins***. Flipping the script, this next player committed a massacre that nobody saw coming, Phillip Adams. Adams was born in Rock Hill, South Carolina. He was a pro defensive back who played for a bunch of different squads during his run in the league. He had a solid career, but his life after football took a horrific turn. On April 7, 2021, Adams went on a shooting rampage in his hometown. He killed 6 people, including Dr. Robert Leslie. He also killed the doctor's wife Barbara, their 2 grandkids, and 2 AC technicians working at the house. The next day, during a standoff with cops, Adams shot himself. The violence shocked the entire community, but the cause might have been hidden inside his skull. The autopsy showed he had stage 2 chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a brain disease caused by taking too many hits to the head. Specialists said his brain damage was unusually bad, specifically in the frontal lobes, the part that controls your impulses and behavior. Dr. Ann McKee analyzed his brain and said Adams didn't just snap out of nowhere, his mind was literally broken. The guy was in a total tailspin, paranoid, forgetting things, acting on impulse, and just blowing up with rage out of nowhere. Doctors said his brain looked just like Aaron Hernandez's, that other NFL player whose untreated CTE basically turned his mind into a violent mess. His family saw the red flags way back. His sister said he was falling apart fast, with a nasty temper and zero interest in taking care of himself. The medical files painted a pretty grim picture, showing that Adams actually tried to get help from the NFL, but got shut down every time, leaving him alone to deal with the pain, the memory gaps, and the sleepless nights. Investigators found a stash of amphetamines and a bunch of guns, plus these notebooks full of weird, cryptic scribbles. Even with all those clues, the cops admit we might never fully get what was going on inside his head. York County Sheriff Kevin Tolson put it best, saying, "There is one individual that knows the why, and he is deceased. We might never solve that puzzle in this lifetime." Anyway, next up, we have got another NFL pro caught up in a tragic family nightmare. Raphael Cherry. Now, this guy was a defensive back who suited up for the Washington Redskins and the Detroit Lions. Born back in December of 1961, Cherry was a 5th-round pick in '85 and played 42 games in the league. But in 1998, his life took a serious nosedive. His estranged wife, Jerry Harris Cherry, was found lifeless on the couch in their Jacksonville home on December 22nd. Prosecutors said Cherry snapped over their divorce and killed her. By '99, he was slapped with a first-degree murder conviction and a life sentence. Cherry never folded, though. He kept insisting, "I never laid a hand on Jerry," and that is the honest truth. Get this, his conviction actually got tossed because the jury was chatting about the case when they were not supposed to. So they ran it back in 2003, and Cherry got convicted of first-degree murder all over again. This time, the judge gave him 30 years. He finally became eligible for parole in 2019 and walked free in July of 2023. The whole thing shook the NFL, just another sad story of a player whose life off the field spiraled into violence. Next on the list is Ray Caruth, a talented player who threw his whole life away over some terrible decisions. Ray Caruth was supposed to be the next big thing. The Carolina Panthers grabbed him in the first round after he crushed it at Colorado. As a rookie, he snagged over 40 passes for 545 yards and 4 touchdowns, making the all-rookie team. But the injury bug bit him hard. He broke his foot in '98 and, honestly, he never really bounced back. By '99, his career was tanking, and his personal life? Total chaos. Caruth was dating Cherika Adams, who was 8 months pregnant with his kid at the time. In November of '99, he hatched a plot with his buddy Van Brett Watkins and another guy, Michael Kennedy, to take her out. So, Caruth uses his car to block her in, and Watkins starts shooting. Adams held on long enough to deliver the baby via emergency C-section, but she passed away a few weeks later. Their son, Chancellor Lee Adams, survived against the odds, but he suffered severe brain damage and cerebral palsy after going without oxygen for over an hour. Caruth ran for it, but got caught the next day hiding in a car trunk in Tennessee. The cops scooped up Watkins and Kennedy, too. In court, prosecutors argued Caruth ordered the hit just because Adams refused to terminate the pregnancy. Caruth's lawyer tried to claim it was a drug deal gone wrong, but the jury was not buying it. They nailed him for conspiracy to commit murder, shooting into an occupied vehicle, and trying to kill an unborn baby. He somehow dodged the death penalty. Watkins got hit with over 40 years for second-degree murder, while Kennedy, the wheelman, got out in 2011. Caruth did 18 years and walked in 2018. He apologized to Adams's mom, but the court banned him from ever raising Chancellor. Moving right along, we have Kevin Ware Jr., a former player who did the unthinkable to his ex-girlfriend. Kevin Ware Jr. was a tight end who spent time with the Washington Redskins and the San Francisco 49ers. He bounced around the league in 2003 and 2004, playing 16 games total, but his career never really popped off. His rap sheet started back at the University of Washington, where he pled guilty to assault. Once football was over, he really went off the rails. We are talking charges for theft, running from the cops, and a whole laundry list of drug offenses. Then in April 2021, his girlfriend Taylor Pomaski vanished after a party at their place in Houston. Neighbors heard them screaming at each other right before she disappeared. It took months, but they finally found Pomaski's remains up in northern Harris County, Texas. It was gruesome. She had been beaten, cut, strangled, and burned. Evidence pointed straight to Ware using a knife and a blunt object, then trying to torch the evidence. A witness even told investigators that Ware took a photo of the fire on his phone. He was already locked up on drug and gun charges when they finally indicted him for murder. He was looking at life in prison, but just days before his trial in 2025, he cut a plea deal. He pled guilty to murder and tampering with evidence, and the judge handed him a 30-year sentence. On top of that, the judge slapped him with overlapping prison terms for his past rap sheet involving narcotics and illegal firearms. Just like that, his gridiron dreams, his freedom, and his lady's life vanished in one brutal, senseless moment, adding another frozen cold entry to the list of NFL ballers who turned into killers. But hold on, we're just getting started. This next guy left jaws on the floor with what he did to his own flesh and blood. Let's talk about Sergio Brown, a safety who spent 7 seasons patrolling the league. He made a name for himself fighting for the Irish at Notre Dame before the New England Patriots scooped him up as an undrafted rookie. The man was a bit of a journeyman, suiting up for the Indianapolis Colts, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Buffalo Bills along the way. Brown had his moments in the sun, like snagging his lone pro pick with the Pats and laying the boom on Rob Gronkowski back when he was rocking the horseshoe. He finally hung up his cleats in 2016 and pivoted to the tech world, working in digital ads and even grabbing a master's degree from the U down in Miami. Then came September 2023, when the script flipped. His mom, Myrtle Simmons Brown, was discovered lifeless in the backyard of her Maywood, Illinois spot. The medical examiner said she took some heavy hits from blunt force trauma. And Sergio? The guy was nowhere to be found. A few days later, he pops up south of the border in Mexico, posting bizarre clips on social media. In the videos, he's rambling about thinking his mom was on vacation, claiming the FBI snatched him, and cracking weird jokes about finding Nemo. Totally unhinged behavior. Come October, Mexican officials grabbed him. He had some of his mom's stuff on him, like her credit cards and cell phone. Not a good look. They shipped him back to the States, straight to Illinois, where he got hit with first-degree murder charges and concealing a body. He pleaded not guilty and is currently cooling his heels in the Cook County Jail waiting for his day in court. Switching gears, this next story is a total heartbreaker involving a player and his girlfriend's 5-year-old little girl. Sierra Wood was a former running back who stunned the sports world with a crime nobody saw coming. A Cali kid from Oxnard, he was an absolute beast at Santa Clara High, racking up thousands of yards and grabbing All-American honors. He took his talents to Notre Dame, grinding his way up the depth chart until he was the main man in the backfield. Wood broke into the league as an undrafted free agent back in 2013, signing with the Houston Texans, then bounced around for cups of coffee with the Patriots, Ravens, Seahawks, and Bills. He even headed north to the CFL, playing for the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Montreal Alouettes. But he never really hit the big time. Then in April 2019, Wood and his girl, Amy Taylor, got busted after her 5-year-old, Laya Davis, passed away. The poor kid was found in rough shape. We're talking dozens of broken ribs, internal bleeding, a messed up liver, and bruises everywhere. Turns out, Wood was forcing the little girl to do intense boot camp workouts because he thought she was too heavy. Taylor admitted to holding the child down, but the injuries proved fatal. The sheer cruelty of the case was all over the headlines. Wood took an Alford plea for second-degree murder and felony child abuse, basically accepting the punishment without technically admitting guilt. In August 2024, the judge gave him life. He won't smell fresh air for at least 10 years. Taylor also pleaded guilty and got handed a similar fate. Next up is Dante Stallworth, another baller who shocked everyone by landing on this grim list of athletes turned killers. Dante Stallworth. This guy was a legit weapon at wide receiver for 10 seasons, catching passes for the Saints, Eagles, Browns, and Pats. Speed was his game. He had big years in 2005 and 2007, and even played in Super Bowl 42 with New England. But off the field, things took a tragic turn. Early morning, March 14, 2009, Stallworth ran over a 59-year-old pedestrian named Mario Reyes in Miami Beach. He was cruising in his Bentley, doing about 50 in a 40 zone. He later fessed up to drinking the night before. Blew a .12, which is way over the legal limit. Stallworth turned himself in the very next day. They charged him with DUI manslaughter. He cut a deal: 30 days in jail, 1,000 hours of community service, 2 years house arrest basically, and 8 years probation. He lost his Florida license forever and paid off Reyes' family to avoid a civil lawsuit. The league suspended him for the whole 2009 season without a paycheck. He did his time and made a comeback, but he was never really the same player after that. Later on, he got into journalism with the Huffington Post and started consulting on security for public venues. Let's switch gears to a story that absolutely rocked the sports world, a linebacker who took his girlfriend out before ending it all. We're talking about Jovan Belcher, a guy with a ton of potential on the gridiron whose story wrapped up in the worst way possible. Coming out of West Babylon, New York, back in July of 1987, this kid was a total beast in high school, crushing it in both wrestling and football. He snagged All-American honors 3 separate times on the wrestling mat and captained the football squad to back-to-back playoff runs. He even helped lock down the school's first ever perfect regular season, way back in 2004. Even with those stats, scouts slept on him, so he headed to the University of Maine and shifted gears from linebacker to defensive end. Belcher didn't slow down there, racking up a whole shelf of All-American awards during his college days. Plus, he walked across the stage with a degree in child development and family relations, which makes what happened later even harder to swallow. Despite going undrafted in 2009, the Kansas City Chiefs picked him up, and boom, he's starting at inside linebacker in no time. By 2011, he was a machine, logging 61 tackles. He re-signed in 2012 and played 11 games before everything fell apart. He had a reputation as a good guy too, constantly hitting up schools and bases to hype up the kids and the troops back home. Fast forward to late 2012, he's living with his girlfriend, 22-year-old Cassandra Perkins, and their 3-month-old baby girl, Zoe. But on December 1st, things went south fast. After a rough night of fighting, Belcher pulled a gun and tragically shot Perkins multiple times, right in front of her own mom. He hopped in his car and sped over to the Chiefs' practice facility, confessed to the staff, and then took his own life right there in the parking lot. Later on, the autopsy showed his blood alcohol was more than double the legal limit, and doctors found signs of CTE, that serious brain condition linked to hits to the head. It left the whole league and his hometown reeling, with memorials held in New York and Texas. Now, let's shift gears to Ray Lewis and his absolutely wild saga. Ray Lewis. The man is easily one of the scariest linebackers to ever strap on a helmet, but there's a dark cloud hanging over his legacy. Born in 1975 in Bartow, Florida, Lewis fought through a rough upbringing to shine at the U before becoming the face of the Baltimore Ravens. The guy was famous for his intense pre-game speeches and absolute ferocity on the grass. He smashed over 2,000 career tackles and dragged the Ravens to 2 Super Bowl rings, even grabbing the MVP trophy for Super Bowl 35. But everything almost crashed and burned on January 31st, 2000, after a Super Bowl party down in Atlanta. A massive brawl popped off between Ray's crew and another group, and by the end of it, 2 men, Jason Baker and Richard Lawler, had been stabbed to death. Next thing you know, Lewis and 2 of his buddies are getting slapped with murder and aggravated assault charges. Police said things got heated right outside the Cobalt Lounge in the Buckhead district. They found blood traces in Ray's limo, and during the trial, he had to admit he lied to the cops about being there in the first place. Eventually, he cut a deal with the prosecutors to save his own skin. He pleaded guilty to obstruction of justice in exchange for testifying against his friends, Reginald Oakley and Joseph Sweeting. His testimony actually helped the jury decide the other 2 guys acted in self-defense, and they both walked free. Ray got 12 months of probation and a massive $250,000 fine from the NFL, the biggest non-drug fine ever at the time. That case shadowed him forever, with plenty of folks wondering how a guy linked to a double homicide was still celebrated on Sunday nights. It's a weird vibe. While millions cheer for Ray Lewis, the legend, two families in Atlanta are still mourning their sons. Still, Lewis went back to work, crushing offenses and cementing his spot as a Hall of Famer despite the noise. Alright, let's keep it moving to another player whose story took a wicked twist. We're looking at Jim Dunaway, a monster defensive tackle for the Buffalo Bills way back in the 60s. He was part of a legendary squad that went 17 straight games without letting a single runner cross the goal line. On the turf, he was a nightmare for quarterbacks, but off the field, his story gets super murky. In 1998, his ex-wife, Nani L, was found floating dead in a half-filled swimming pool. The medical examiner found a fractured skull and said she was knocked out cold before she even hit the water. They'd split 3 years prior, and she walked away with over 800 acres of land plus half his NFL pension. Dunaway wasn't happy about that payout and was reportedly gearing up to fight the settlement in court. Police charged him with murder, but a grand jury decided there wasn't enough there to take him to trial, so the criminal case got dropped. That wasn't the end of it, though his own kids slapped him with a wrongful death lawsuit, blaming him for their mom's passing. In 2002, a judge found him liable and ordered him to pay his children $579,000. Crazy enough, Dunaway played alongside O.J. Simpson for 3 seasons, another guy who got acquitted criminally but lost the civil case regarding his ex-wife. Wrapping up our list, we've got one more player who threw it all away, Dwayne Goodrich. Let's talk about Dwayne Lewis Goodrich, a cornerback who made the leap from the University of Tennessee to the Dallas Cowboys. This guy was a total stud in college, starting for 3 years and stealing the show at the 1999 Fiesta Bowl with a massive 54-yard pick six that won him defensive MVP honors and helped the Vols secure a national title. When he finally hung up his college cleats, his stat sheet was stuffed with interceptions and tackles, which is even more impressive considering he played his final season with a messed-up back. Jump to the 2002 season, though, and things slowed down. He played in 11 games, mostly as a backup, started just once, and came up empty on interceptions. But the real turning point hit on January 14, 2003, when Goodrich got involved in a horrific hit-and-run on a highway in North Dallas. The crash took the lives of 2 people who were just trying to be heroes, helping a guy out of a burning vehicle. People watching said Goodrich was tearing down the road at 100 miles per hour, but the experts later figured he was doing between 54 and 80. Police cuffed him the very next day, charging him with vehicular manslaughter. By September 8, 2003, the verdict was in. Guilty on 2 counts of criminally negligent homicide, costing him a $20,000 fine and prison sentences of 7 and 12 years. The legal battle wasn't over, though. In 2006, the families and prosecutors managed to slap another 5 years onto his sentence. Amidst all that courtroom drama, there was a heavy moment when survivor Shuki Joseph walked right up to Goodrich, shook his hand, and actually forgave him. After serving 8 years, he was released on October 5, 2011, but his gridiron dreams were officially dead. What do you guys think about his journey? Sound off below. Before you head out, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to NFL Facts so you never miss an update.